Hey there everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with us today, because we've got an eye-opening, mind-blowing topic to dive into. If you're into understanding the complexities of human behavior, particularly those people that leave you shaking your head in confusion, then today's video is definitely for you. Before we jump in though, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our deep dives into the world of psychology and relationships. Trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Now let's talk about something many of us have encountered, but maybe didn't quite understand. Narcissists. At first glance, narcissists seem confident, self-assured, and even charismatic, right? They often appear to have it all together. They can be the life of the party, the boss that commands a room, or the partner that sweeps you off your feet. But if you've ever dealt with a true narcissist for long enough, you start to see there's something much darker lurking beneath the surface. Today we're going to reveal the hidden demons of narcissists that they try so hard to keep buried, but which influence their behavior in ways that leave others feeling confused, hurt, and manipulated. Buckle up because we're about to go deep. So what are these hidden demons? First, let's talk about the most prominent one, the fear of inadequacy. Despite their outward confidence, many narcissists are actually deeply insecure. This is one of the greatest ironies of narcissism. Their grandiose behavior, the constant need for admiration, and their sense of entitlement all serve as a mask to cover up the deep-rooted feeling that they are, in fact, not good enough. They've spent so much time crafting this perfect image of themselves that anything that challenges it, no matter how small, sends them spiraling into anxiety or even rage. It's this fundamental fear of inadequacy that makes them lash out when criticized, or even when they perceive a threat to their image that may not even exist. This leads us to the demon of vulnerability, something narcissists try to avoid at all costs. Vulnerability to most people is a way of connecting. It's a moment where you open up to someone else and show a bit of who you really are, imperfections and all. But for narcissists, vulnerability is dangerous. It's like exposing a wound. Because remember, at the core, narcissists feel inadequate, and to them, showing vulnerability is like admitting that inadequacy to the world. So they create this emotional armor. They push people away or manipulate situations to ensure they are never in a position where they can be hurt or rejected. If you've ever tried to have a heart-to-heart with a narcissist and found yourself hitting a brick wall, this is why. But there's something even darker beneath that. Narcissists are haunted by the demon of shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt is about feeling bad for something you've done, while shame is about feeling bad for who you are. Deep down, narcissists carry a profound sense of shame, often from childhood experiences where they were made to feel like they weren't enough, or where they were only valued for their achievements and not for who they were as people. This deep-seated shame is usually buried so deep that the narcissist might not even consciously recognize it, but it drives much of their behavior. They'll do anything to avoid feeling shame, and this is why they project their flaws onto others. They can't bear to admit fault because doing so would bring that shame to the surface. This brings us to the demon of control. Because a narcissist's inner world is so fragile, they need to maintain control of their outer world to feel safe. When they can control people and situations, they can control how they are perceived, which helps them manage their own insecurities. But this need for control can become manipulative, toxic, and even abusive. They might gaslight you, twist facts, or use people as pawns to keep their sense of superiority intact. This is why relationships with narcissists can feel so exhausting. You're constantly walking on eggshells trying to avoid setting them off, because they are always trying to control the narrative in their environment. And then there's the demon of envy. It's strange to think that someone who seems so full of themselves could be jealous of others, but it's true. Narcissists often compare themselves to others, even though they might act like they don't care what anyone thinks. Deep down, though, they crave what others have, whether that's success, beauty, happiness, or love. And because they see the world in a very black and white way, someone else having something good automatically makes them feel like they're lacking. This envy can lead to passive-aggressive behavior, undermining others' successes, or even sabotage. They might try to belittle you or minimize your achievements because, in their mind, your success threatens their own fragile sense of superiority. Now let's not forget the demon of loneliness. Narcissists, for all their charm and charisma, often find themselves alone. At first, they may attract friends, lovers, or followers with their larger-than-life personalities. But over time, the manipulative, controlling, and often cruel behavior tends to push people away. This leads to a paradox. They desperately crave admiration and attention, but their actions often leave them isolated. Their inability to form deep, genuine connections, because of their fear of vulnerability, leaves them in a constant state of loneliness, even when they're surrounded by people. But instead of recognizing this and changing their behavior, they double down on their narcissistic tendencies, trying even harder to control, manipulate, and seek validation. But perhaps the most tragic hidden demon of narcissists is the fear of abandonment. Despite how they may act, cold, indifferent, even dismissive, narcissists are terrified of being abandoned. Many of them have deep attachment issues stemming from their past, and the idea that someone might leave them is unbearable. This is why when a narcissist feels like they're losing control of someone, whether that's a partner, a friend, or even a colleague, they will often go to great lengths to keep that person in their orbit. They might manipulate, guilt trip, or even resort to love bombing, showering the person with affection, attention, or gifts to reel them back in. But once they feel secure again, the manipulative and controlling behavior resumes. So, what does all of this mean for those of us who deal with narcissists in our lives? It's important to understand that their behavior isn't just about being arrogant or selfish. It's driven by these deep-seated fears and insecurities, these hidden demons that they are often trying to outrun. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it can help us make sense of it. When you understand that a narcissist's need for control, validation, and admiration is really a defense mechanism against their own inner demons, you can start to see their behavior in a new light. However, it's crucial to protect yourself when dealing with a narcissist. Because of their inability to truly connect on a deep level, and their tendency to manipulate and control, relationships with narcissists can be draining and even damaging. Setting boundaries is essential. Narcissists will often push and test boundaries, but it's important to stand firm. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated by their charm or guilt trips. Recognize that their behavior is more about them than it is about you. And finally, remember that you can't fix a narcissist. Their demons are deeply ingrained, and while they may be able to change with intensive therapy, that change has to come from within them. It's not your job to fix or save them, especially at the expense of your own mental and emotional health. Sometimes the best thing you can do is to step back, create distance, and focus on your own well-being. Alright everyone, I hope this deep dive into the hidden demons of narcissists has helped shed some light on the complexities of their behavior. It's a tough thing to deal with, but understanding what drives a narcissist can empower you to make informed decisions in your interactions with them. If you found this video insightful, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with anyone who might need to hear this, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. As always, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.
Hey everyone! Thank you so much for coming today. Before we get to today's issue, I want to take a moment to tell you to click the below button if you haven't already. Don't forget to set up alerts so you never miss one of our heated discussions. Your help is worth a lot to me, and it keeps this line open. Now let's start talking about today, God's punishment for narcissistic men who often play with women. In our society, people's actions don't always seem to have clear-cut effects. A lot of stories are about men who play with women's hearts and seem to get away with it, changing their feelings and abusing their trust. These guys often think they are the center of the universe and can't be reached because they are selfish. But today I want to talk about a higher spiritual view, one that goes beyond the here and now, one that talks about divine justice and the inevitable judgment that those who chose this path will face. When we talk about narcissism, especially in men who hurt women, we're not just talking about being selfish or cocky. From this point of view, Narcissism is a serious and common disorder that comes from not caring about other people and feeling very entitled. Narcissist men don't see women as people with thoughts, feelings, and worth. Instead, they see them as tools to be used for their own pleasure. It was easy for these guys to charm and control others, causing a lot of mental damage in their wake, and still believe they hadn't done anything wrong. But can anyone really avoid what happens when they act in this way? Many faith's texts and spiritual lessons say, no, loud and clear. Even though it takes a while for us to notice it, God's judgment is always fair and perfect. Karma, the spiritual law of cause and effect, is one of the rules that the world follows. It is very hard for humans to understand. A lot of religions say that what you put will grow back to you. This is not just a literary metaphor, it is a basic fact of the spiritual world. When a person plants the seeds of dishonesty, trickery, and violence, he is sure to fail. It might not be clear at first. And he might look like he's doing great to other people. But the effects are already starting to show in his spirit. Fire and brimstone or quick vengeance aren't always God's punishments. It is a lot more indirect and sneaky most of the time. If a guy is narcissistic and has spent his whole life controlling women's feelings, the punishment may look different for him. The soul being hollowed out is one of the worst ways that God can punish people. When someone constantly doesn't care about the feelings and well-being of others, they move away from the holy light inside them. Over time, this leaves you feeling empty, and no amount of happiness or success in this world can fill that void. It's a spiritual hole that's eating away at them, making them very unhappy and without hope. Moreover, the relationships a man values, those based on manipulation and control, will surely fall apart. He will be reflected back on in others the trust he so readily breaches in them. For the energy we invest in the world comes back to us. He could find himself surrounded by equally dishonest and unreliable people. Many people ignore this practical reality until it's too late. It is not only a spiritual truth. Apart from this, there is loneliness resulting from alienating people who might have actually loved him. A narcissistic man regards vulnerability as weakness, hence he typically pushes away real love and affection. This results over time a life devoid of real connection where surface interactions may abound but the deep, meaningful bonds that feed the soul are nowhere to be found. Being surrounded by people yet feeling completely alone is another kind of divine punishment. Besides, the legacy of such a man is tarnished. Those who are recognized for their dishonesty and manipulation discover that their reputation follows them in a society that values integrity and authenticity more and more. This tarnish of one's legacy reflects the spiritual taint left on the soul rather than only public perception. One will remember a life spent in search of self-serving objectives at the expense of others, not for its successes but for the damage it did. The inner conflict a narcissistic guy suffers also clearly shows God's penalty. These people are typically quite insecure even with their outward assurance. Their drive to rule and dominate originates from a place of fear, that of being exposed, that of being powerless, that of being unworthy. This inner struggle is unrelenting, hence no amount of outside accomplishment can quiet the voice of uncertainty inside. This psychological suffering causes the person to face the darkness they have cultivated inside themselves, therefore acting as a kind of divine justice. Not to mention the spiritual effects that transcend this lifetime either. Many spiritual systems discuss karmic debt and the trip the soul travels. A life lived in contempt of others results in a high karmic load that the soul must pay for in next incarnations. The misery caused to others has to be compensated, hence the soul will probably experience similar difficulties and suffering going forward. This loop of cause and effect guarantees that, in the whole scope of the universe, no action, no matter how well disguised or justified, goes unpackled. Therefore, even if a narcissistic man would think he is above criticism and unaffected by his behavior, the truth is he is merely postponing the unavoidable. Though it is not on the time frame we, as humans, know, the universe guarantees that justice is done in its infinite wisdom. This reminds us soberly that our choices, especially those that hurt others, never have no effects. Finally, I would want to thank every single one of you for investing time to listen to our conversation. It should have given some understanding of the spiritual principles controlling our life as well as the need of behaving ethically and compassionately. Should you find this video useful, kindly mark it with a thumbs up, forward it to someone who could find value in this message, and naturally remember to subscribe to the channel for more of this kind of stuff. Your encouragement enables us to carry on these vital dialogues. Take care of each other and oneself till next time.